Next up, it's one of the most contentious questions on this year's ballot, whether to legalize recreational marijuana in Massachusetts. Monday night, we held a debate here in Greater Boston with two state reps, one for, one against.
Right now, we have a large, unregulated, billion-dollar industry controlled by criminal syndicates. Marijuana is widely available. And in fact, I don't think this is a debate about the public health and public safety effects of marijuana. We're already feeling those. It's in widespread use. It's about whether it should be legal or not, and that's a very different question.
I think that this is really less about legalization and more about commercialization, and I don't disagree that we have a public policy issue and we need to find a path out of it. I just don't think this is the right path. This is really about allowing the marijuana industry in here. They wrote the initiative that we're dealing with. It was by them, for them, and so it allows the most advantageous ballot initiative that's ever been done in the country.
Most of the major elected officials in the state, as you know, are against legalization, including Governor Charlie Baker, House Speaker Bob DeLeo, Boston Mayor Marty Walsh, and Attorney General Maura Healey, who talked about why when she joined us on Boston Public Radio just this past Monday.
It's just not the right time for our state. I think there are serious public health issues with respect to legalization of recreational marijuana, and I say that as a person who supported decriminalization and who supported medical marijuana.
Also this week, the group Campaign for a Safe and Healthy Massachusetts released its first anti-legalization ad.
Question 4 would allow thousands of pot shops and marijuana operators throughout Massachusetts, in neighborhoods like yours. Higher potency, dangerous drivers. It's the reason health professionals are urging you to vote no on 4.
Joining me on the other side is a well-known proponent of legalization. You know him from Rick Steves Europe. His show comes right after mine. Rick, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I want you to respond to some of the negative arguments. We'll get to those in a second. You go out of your way to say you're not pro-pot, but you're pro-legalization. Explain to me the difference there.
That's right. Marijuana is a drug. It can be dangerous. It can be abused, but it's a reality. People smoke it, and we got to decide how to handle that smartly in our community. And I support a pro-public safety bill that's interested in civil liberties, that's also interested in fiscal responsibility and recognizes a losing prohibition, interested in stopping the racism that's inherent in this law, and it's not pro-business. I mean, you got to think about whenever you hear these voices in opposition to question 4, who's paying for this? And there's a big power called what I call the PPP, the Pot Prohibition Profiteers. There's a lot of money to be made by keeping marijuana illegal.
Do your travels in Europe in any way inform what your position is on what marijuana policy should be in the United States?
Well, they sure do. I've spent a third of my adult life hanging out in Europe, where a joint's about as exciting as a can of beer. And Europeans have realized there's no correlation between how strict the laws are and how much a society consumes. None at all. It seems logical that if you legalize marijuana, use would go up. But we have a track record now, and we know, Jim, that use will not go up. Your politicians and your political establishment here in Massachusetts talking like it's 2010. And I know, I've been at this for 20 years. I'm a board member of NORML. I was a co-sponsor and a spokesperson for the bill in Washington State, much like your question for that legalized, taxed, and regulated marijuana 4 years ago.
One of the 4 states where it's now legal plus
That's
D.C., right? Yeah.
Washington and Colorado were first. The governors of both of those states were not in favor of this law 4 years ago. Now they both recognize it's a smart law, and they are supporting it. We've got, there is a track record. That's the amazing thing. We know in Washington State, and we know after Colorado, use will not go up, crime will not go up, teen use will not go up, and DUIs will not go up.
Well, is that the answer to Maura Healey? I want to go through very quickly some of the negative arguments we heard here. Not the right time. Should we not get more information from Colorado, Washington et al. Before we take the step? Why shouldn't we wait?
Well, one reason I don't want to wait is because this is a racist law. It may not be tragic in Massachusetts, but today 20,000 Americans are in prison for nonviolent marijuana possession charges. There are 700,000 people a year in our country being arrested for marijuana, and they're not rich white guys. They're poor people and they're black people, and this is a terrible thing in our society. We're stoking a very bloody civil war south of our border in Mexico. I think Mexico has lost about as many people as we lost in Vietnam. These are real issues stoked by our government's insistence on keeping marijuana criminal.
One of the primary arguments, you heard it there from the state representative, and I heard it at a debate I did on this issue at the Kennedy Institute a couple of weeks ago. Commercialization. Yeah. Capital letters, big marijuana is coming to Massachusetts, and that's not a good thing. What's your response to that?
Well, Jim, big marijuana is here. It's called a black market. I come from Washington State, where apples are big, and marijuana was rivaling apples as the major cash crop in our state. And now we have taken that black market and we've legalized it. And our governor is enjoying $120 million of tax revenue a year. Not because more people are smoking pot. It's not coming out of people's pockets. It's coming out of the black market. The black market is empowering and enriching gangs and organized crime. And I'm a board member of NORML, and my membership there is conditioned on the fact that we are not supporting big business. We are a civil liberties lobby, and it is not big marijuana that is supporting the Yes campaign in Massachusetts. It's civil liberties people, and that's why I'm supporting it.
We should say NORML, National Organization of Reform Marijuana Laws, for those who don't know.
Right.
The one argument I have to say is most persuasive with me on the no side is the whole risk to kids thing. I mean, these edibles, for example, in Colorado, obviously, just like in Massachusetts, under 21, you're not supposed to use it. They're really attractive to kids. Does the kid issue not cause you some anxiety or doubt here, Rick
Children's
Steves?
safety is critical for this. And I'll tell you, we are very concerned about that. In my state, in Washington State, the Children's Alliance. This is not Grannies for Ganja. This is 100 groups, church groups and so on, that are really interested in well-being and safety of kids. They debated this, and they supported us because they know the most dangerous thing about marijuana for kids is the fact that it's illegal. You know, if you're a mom or a dad with a teenager and your kid does something stupid and gets busted for marijuana, suddenly they can't get into college, they can't get a job. That's what's dangerous. Now, of course, the edibles thing is serious. And
Should
what
the
we need to
legislature,
do,
if this passes, should the legislature amend the law and outlaw edibles?
that's the great thing about an initiative. The legislature can get in there and they can do what they want. What they did in Colorado was they got serious about packaging, labeling, and dosage. And that's what I would recommend.
How about gateway drug issue?
Europeans know that the only thing gateway about marijuana is the fact that it's illegal. Because when it's illegal, you got to buy it from a criminal on the street who's got a vested interest in selling you something more addictive and more profitable. And I'll tell you, what we realize is there's not a whole reservoir of decent people wishing they could ruin their life smoking pot if only it was legal. People who smoke pot, who want to smoke pot, are doing it right now. And Europeans have dealt with this opioid addiction in a very creative and productive way, and they get marijuana out of the equation, then they get credibility, and their law enforcement and their drug education focuses on the hard drug-addicted population. There's no correlation between how strict the laws are and how much is consumed, and the gateway argument just doesn't hold up.
Very quickly, a lot of people in America, including my family, swear by your travel work. I assume this is not good for business, is it?
Well, you would assume that, but I'm so passionate about this issue that I don't look at my bottom line before I speak out against this. I'm embarrassed that our country is maintaining this prohibition of our age, and 10 years from now people will be thankful that we have taken this prohibition apart. You know, when we took down the prohibition against alcohol back in the 30s, people didn't say booze is good. They recognized the law against it was causing more pain to society than the drug abuse itself. This is not pro-pot. I've opposed pro-pot initiatives. This is pro-public safety. This is smart public policy.
10 seconds. What do you say to somebody who says, I've been a devotee, I'm never buying another book, I'm not watching the show, not listening to the radio? What do you say to them?
Well, I'm afraid I've had a few people tell me they're not going to take my tours and not use my guidebooks, and I say, Europe's going to be more fun without you.
Rick Steves, thanks so much for your time. It's great to see you.
Joe.
Really appreciate it.